So I know that it has become sort of passé to compare modern events with the atrocities of World War II and a certain regime operating out of Germany at that time. But when it comes to describing the nature of what's happening in this world right now, the first thing that comes to my mind is blitzkrieg. And I don't want to linger very long on the history of that term, because sadly, history is a very sensitive and controversial topic on certain platforms these days. So you can read into the history of that yourself. But the word blitzkrieg itself is a German word that means lightning war. And it's an offensive military tactic that involves spontaneously bombarding the enemy with a constant and excessive barrage of firepower, to overwhelm the enemy and sort of weaken their front lines so that you can penetrate their defenses. It's the word that the English term blitz is derived from, the word that most Americans associate with American football. It's a defensive play where a higher than usual amount of defensive players will rush the quarterback in a concentrated effort, to tackle him and to sack him to the field. And if you happen to be the quarterback of that opposing team, and you got a bunch of these muscle men running directly towards you, then you're going to get rid of that ball as soon as possible, to avoid getting sacked to the ground. And so you won't have time to survey the field for open receivers like you usually do, or to employ any of the usual strategies that you would as a quarterback. You can't locate an escape route even. Your only options are to get slammed to the ground violently or to throw the ball in the direction of your guy and just hope that he manages to catch it. And whenever I scroll through the headlines these days and I see how all these various changes related to Agenda 2030 and the so-called Great Reset are now being implemented all over the place, it almost feels like we are on the receiving end of a psychological blitzkrieg. Even people like us who are somewhat prepared for these current events are unable to keep up with the rapid progression of all these agendas. It's all just coming too fast. And so before we're able to even respond and to deal with one life-altering agenda, a new one comes around the corner. And it reminds me of that meme that's like, I can't believe it's monkeypox season already. I still got my Ukraine decorations up, or whatever it says. Or that hilarious I support the current thing meme campaign. But that's what happens. These orchestrated and correlating changes are being pushed now, again, on a weekly basis. And although it seems like we're being bombarded from every angle, those who have been paying attention can easily see how all of these crises fit neatly under the umbrella of Agenda 2030. And well, I've been studying Agenda 2030 ever since it was still Agenda 21. And so like many of you, I wasn't shocked by the government overreach back in 2020 when the first round of lockdowns and constitutional restrictions began. And also, probably like many of you, I understood that this was the big NWO event that we've all been waiting for. And so I may have seemed kind of prophetic to my peers and my coworkers back then when I predicted that the lockdowns would escalate to mandatory masks and then mandatory jabs, that there would be food and water shortages and riots in the streets, that gas prices would skyrocket, and eventually there would be an economic collapse. Those are all things that I was saying were going to occur ever since day one of the lockdown. But obviously I'm not a prophet. I'm just a guy who took the time to read the playbook. And all these so-called events are actually well-planned agendas that are designed to bring about specific changes to the dynamic of governmental authority and civil society. But what I didn't anticipate was the speed and the force in which all of these agendas would be marched out. I spent months creating a documentary movie called Chipped, which, by the way, is still available on BitChute and Rumble and my other channels on other platforms. But anyways, the movie was about the coming microchip revolution. That was still far off at the time I started making the movie. But by the time that the movie was complete, many of these coming technologies that I exposed in the movie were already in production at that point. Because they found reasons to justify the production of these things due to the Great Reset and the pandemic. And part of me feels like my time has come, kind of, because for all these years of being strangely passionate about all these topics and all the books and all the information that I've compiled and all of the work that I've done, and it feels like society is finally asking questions now that I have the answers to. But the problem is that by the time that I can actually address the current thing, a new thing will come along that's even worse than the last thing. So like I said, it's like a psychological blitzkrieg, and we're all being overwhelmed to a frenzy. It's just bam, bam, bam. And the rapid growth of tyranny emerging in this world, it's almost too pressing to realistically strategize against it. But sadly, I think we're getting to the point where a strategy won't do us any good against this anyways, because it really seems like we're heading into some end time territory here. And this isn't InfoWars. I'm not part of a militia. I don't have a strategy or a game plan to offer you. mean, don't get me wrong, we are responsible to fight for our freedoms, to care for our community, to know our rights and all of this, but the day will come, and perhaps the day is already here, when the Antichrist will finally be prepared to take his throne. And when that happens, there is no more revolution. There's only revelation at that point. I've always said that this is a spiritual battle. And on this channel, I've often quoted Ephesians 6:12, which says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." And while this scripture may well fit the description of our current ruling elite, who we know to be closeted occultists and Satanists, it will eventually apply to a force that's beyond political discourse. Because the Antichrist doesn't require your vote. And there's nothing that you can ever do that will change the course of these end-time events that are described in the Bible. And so the only real solution, if we are indeed in that time, is just to put your faith in the redeeming blood of Christ and to make God the Lord of your life. Because whether we are about to enter the Third World War or whether it's just something as mundane as cancer, we're all gonna die. Nobody makes it out of this place alive. And as you start seeing the evidence of this new world order, coming to the surface, understand that this is far deeper than the Great Reset or Agenda 2030. It's a lot deeper than Bilderberg or the Bohemian Grove. This is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And I hope that you will come to recognize that these are really biblical prophecies being fulfilled around us. And hopefully that will cause you to believe in what the Bible says, all the way through the gospel, and that it will draw you into an abiding faith in Christ and a belief in the goodwill of God. Okay, so now you are about to see a random assortment of clips that I stole from fellow YouTube truthers like Slow Boy Whiteboard, Sheep Farm Studios, High Impact Flicks, and others who I will try to mention their links in the description, but here in the truther community, this is just kind of what we do, we're just passing the information along. You guys do it to my videos all the time. Yeah, but it's just going to be a hodgepodge of kind of crazy stuff going on in the world right now, including news headlines and propaganda from think tanks and just all types of stuff. So thank you to anybody that I stole any footage from. Like I said, I will try to get your link into the description of this video. But with all that said, just sit back now and enjoy the freak show. This is Tim from Fallen World Films.
Johnny Depp made a surprise appearance Sunday night at the 2022 MTV Video Music Awards, nearly 3 months after his defamation trial with his ex-wife, Amber Heard. The actor appeared in a brief cameo toward the beginning of the show, with his face digitally superimposed into the helmet of a floating moon person. Depp hyped up the crowd by quipping, "Hey VMAs, let's get back to the bleeping music, shall we?" Snoop Dogg and Eminem served fans with new music too, as they delivered a metaverse performance of their latest collab, From the D to the LBC, which was released in June. Snoop Dogg pretended to smoke an oversized joint as the pair sat on a couch on stage before entering the metaverse to perform their song. Bad Bunny also made a statement during his VMAs performance, surprising the crowd when he leaned over to give his female backup dancer a kiss, then turned the other way and gave his male backup dancer a smooch too. His performance came right after he was named Artist of the Year.
Dedicate this to all of the queer kids out there who don't feel that they can take up space and inhabit the fullness of who they are. Thank you for getting an overtly queer song onto mainstream radio.
I don't know what music video for good means, but I do know what your vote means, and that's a lot. Your vote means everything to me. It means everything to making a change in this country. So remember, when you're voting for your favorite artist, vote to change some of these laws that are oppressing us.
September 30th, I have a movie coming out called Bros. Bros is making history as the first gay rom-com ever made by a major studio.
Here was he.
And the first where every role is played by an openly LGBTQ actor. And I need you all there in theaters on September 30th because we need to show all the homophobes like Clarence Thomas and all the homophobes on the Supreme Court that we want gay love stories and we support LGBTQ people.
Yes.
And we are not letting them drag us back into the last century because they are in the past and Bros is the future.
Sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me.
Good night, everyone. Stay super freaky. Have great vagina. I love ya.
Even thousands of years ago, philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates understood the tremendous influence music has on its listeners. Aristotle recognized that music can even shape people's character, warning, if one listens to the wrong kind of music, he will become the wrong kind of person. 18th century Scottish writer and politician Andrew Fletcher echoed this sentiment when he said, "Let me make the songs of a nation, and I care not who makes its laws." It's foolish to deny the power of music and musicians, or to deny that songs and music videos are often very persuasive pieces of propaganda. Musicians often affect fashion, starting new trends, and even creating new words and catchphrases. I'm sure you're familiar with bling, for shizzle, getting jiggy with it, and other idiotic terms coined by mainstream musicians that millions of mentally enslaved morons incorporated into their vocabulary, some of which were added to the dictionary. They became so popular. Many listeners clearly copied the dress and style of their favorite musicians, and some songs are admittedly designed to bring attention to various social causes.
And we are not letting them drag us back into the last century because they are in the past and Bros is the future.
And while many people think it's an internet conspiracy theory that any government agency has any interest in controlling entertainment, declassified documents prove that the U.S. government had implemented a special program in Cuba where popular Cuban hip-hop artists were recruited by the CIA, which co-opted the rappers and used them to encourage their fans to rise up and overthrow their communist president, Raul Castro. The documents revealed that U.S. intelligence agency contractors spent millions of dollars through a front company called Creative Associates International, which worked to undermine Cuba's communist government. A year before these revelations, Jay-Z and Beyonce made headlines for a controversial vacation to Cuba when there was a travel embargo preventing Americans from visiting the country unless they had special government approval. It was then revealed that someone in the U.S. government quietly granted them this approval, which is usually only given to people who were on official U.S. government business. This led some to believe that Jay-Z's visit was part of the plan to influence Cuba's music industry by introducing him to some of the artists who were assets of this covert propaganda program in order to boost their credibility.
All the homophobes like Clarence Thomas and all the homophobes on the Supreme Court that we want gay love stories and we support LGBTQ people.
Fertility Institute in Los Angeles. This is the first clinic which offered surrogacy to sodomites.
We've become world famous for being able to choose a boy or a girl. I have gay patients right now from Russia that we're speaking to. Yeah, I can show you the email
kids?
about having baby, first baby. Yeah. Blue is a boy and pink is a girl. Okay? And you can see all the files.
And what's the green one?
Green is genetic disorders like Down syndrome, or they have a genetic problem. Okay? Most of them are boys and girls. Yeah.
For whom they want more, girl or boy?
The male gays want boys and the female gays want girls. And here's some of the frozen tanks. Let me get them. Can one of you guys unlock? I got a film crew from Moscow here. Can one of you guys just unlock one of them? Great, that's all I need. Thank you. Frozen embryos. The tanks are full.
Can you explain what exactly you have there?
Yeah. We have sperm from the man, frozen. We have eggs from the woman, frozen. Put them together, we get embryos.
In the human body, it's already...
А здесь эмбрион заморожен, получается.
We take the embryos out, we warm them up, they come alive again, and then we give them to the mother. They're good for 100 years. There, they're taking the eggs and taking the sperm and putting them together to make the embryo.
Hundreds of people in the valley say they are hearing voices in their heads. Those voices are being transmitted by microwave or other methods.
Well, several viewers asked us to investigate what they call electronic harassment. KMIR 6's Angela Monroe joins us now with what she's discovered. Angela.
Electronic harassment, synthetic telepathy, voice-to-skull technology. Chances are you haven't heard of these terms, but after searching the internet, I found dozens of websites dedicated to the phenomenon and several Valley residents who say they're victims.
How much more can you invade me than to go into my brain?
It sounds like somebody else is reading the book, only it's thoughts.
We're not having a group hallucination. This is actually something that's happening.
These men all live in the area, didn't know each other before the voices started, and say someone is playing mind games with them.
Mostly it's a lot of derogatory comments about whatever you're thinking about.
Only time I ever had a whole sentence, he said, "This is not about you," which just frosted me. If it's not about me, what the hell am I going through all this for?
It's a mysterious sickness called the Havana syndrome. It's affected a small group of American diplomats and spies overseas. And now, in a new report that just came out, just within the last maybe 90 minutes or so, you've got this panel of experts working for U.S. intel agencies saying that the most likely cause is microwave energy from some kind of external source. They don't really know what that source is.
Bond says he's found more than 300 victims locally and is tracking others across the state through billboards. In Johnson Valley, a Freedom House just opened to help people who believe they are being targeted.
To many of you who find yourselves the object of covert harassment, that there is hope and that you are not alone, and that we are striving to find legislation and we're working towards freedom for all.
Derek Robinson leads a national group called Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance. He says he knows who's playing mind games.
Rogue government officials that are sponsoring this, also corrupt business officials, and private citizens.
And he also told us how.
Most of it is delivered by microwave, and I believe it's satellite delivered, whether someone is on a remote location using a laptop or next door using the desktop.
Bond says neurotransmitter chips that run off body electricity have been inserted into some people.
And they assign cell phone numbers to them. The cell phone numbers are then run through a computer, and a computer translates your thoughts. This crime has been available to the military for 60 years.
We sat down with local psychiatrist Dr. Alan Drucker to get his professional opinion.
There's no scientific evidence and there's no objective evidence to show that what they believe to be happening is factually true.
So what does the doctor believe is behind these voices?
Information that I found on many of these websites really confirms or is consistent with what I see in delusional disorders.
This is the scene out there on West Olympic. This is where firefighters say there has been a fire at a poultry processing plant. You can see firefighters pretty much trying to surround and round this building right now, Ross.
Yeah, firefighters haven't been on scene that long, and this is always the first attempt just to get the fire under control. They have a huge response here, this being a processing plant. We imagine there's all sorts of equipment inside there. Fortunately, because it's a Sunday, we're also imagining that there aren't many people at work there, and you don't see a lot of cars surrounding the facility on the street. Again, it's surround and drowned. Firefighters on scene, and it looks like they're rapidly getting this fire at a poultry processing facility in Montebello under control.
Als deze overheid vindt dat we Nederland één dorp van of één stad van moeten maken wat helemaal volgebouwd wordt met huizen, dan moeten ze dat vertellen. En dan moeten ze niet zeggen dat er een stikstofprobleem is en dat gebruiken om maar de grond van de boeren in handen te krijgen om daar woningen op te bouwen. Want dat is er op het moment aan de hand.
Ja, het is een verborgen agenda eigenlijk.
100%. Ja. Ik heb er nooit in willen geloven. Ook die complottheorieën die je soms hoort. Maar steeds weer, stukje bij beetje, komen al die complottheorieën komen uit.
But I think we have to explain to everybody that this revolution, there are some risks which we have to get under control, but there are many more opportunities. And at the end, if I look very far ahead, I feel that we are at a threshold of human society. I think it gives us the opportunity at the end, with the help of robots, with the help of those technologies, to find a new sophistication for humanity, which means a kind of renaissance, to become more creative, to become more society-oriented, to show more a feeling of solidarity, because it frees us from the traditional production and consumption cycles.
Jackson is basically, they're just trying to survive.
We have to prepare for a more angry world, and how to prepare? It means to take the necessary action to create a fairer world. I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
The developing a dire situation in Mississippi. The state's capital, Jackson, now without reliable drinking water after pumps at the main water treatment facility failed. Some 180,000 residents have little or no water pressure in their homes.
The state of emergency in Mississippi after torrential rains and flooding there, and now the capital's largest water treatment plant
is failing.
In Jackson, Mississippi, where the governor has declared a state of emergency, telling residents, don't drink the water.
The governor has now called in the National Guard to help distribute bottled water.
This morning, the city of Jackson, Mississippi declaring an emergency, calling on the National Guard to distribute fresh water. About 250,000 people don't have drinking water there. The tap system is failing. The governor says days of flooding shut down a major pump at Jackson's main water treatment plant, and they're not sure when they're going to get it back.
Here's your morning rush.
This morning, people in Jackson, Mississippi are being told to expect little or no water for an undetermined amount of time.
People in Jackson, Mississippi are being told to expect little or no drinkable running water for an undetermined amount of time.
Mississippi's governor declaring a water emergency.
More than 100,000 people are left without reliable running water. The rain-battered state now dealing with devastating damage to its major pump at Jackson's main water treatment facility. Tonight, families in Mississippi's capital city are scrambling for the most basic human necessity, clean water. Overnight, Governor Kate Reeves announcing a key water treatment plant is on the verge of total collapse.
Until it is fixed, it means we do not have reliable running water at scale. It means the city cannot produce enough water to fight fires, to reliably flush toilets, and to meet other critical needs.
A lot of these people that I'm talking to in line say they can't flush their toilets. They say that they can't bathe, they can't cook, they can't do anything. And so they're desperately hoping, they're saying they might get a case of water. They're hoping they get more than that, but even that, they're not sure how long it's going to last because now this water problem here in Jackson goes back years from the failing infrastructure.
This has resulted in water not being safe to drink and little to no water pressure for many of the people here in Jackson, meaning that they can't flush their toilets, they can't take showers. The impacts are just on and on and on. Businesses have had to shut down. They just cannot operate like this. The fire department has found fire hydrants that have dried up. Schools here in Jackson have switched to remote learning for the immediate future.
If I could write you a check right now to fix the problem, how big would that check have to be?
For the water system alone, it would have to be in excess of more than $200 million.
In some parts of the city, the fire department is finding no water in fire hydrants.
This is certainly an emergency. The governor there telling the people of Jackson not to drink the water, saying that the water and sewer is on the brink of collapse for 250,000 people. Now, the governor was alerted last week that pumps at one of the city's 2 water treatment plants were damaged. Then came all that record rainfall and the flooding of the Pearl River, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Jackson residents have been under boil water notices since last month when water samples found harmful contaminant levels.
Jackson residents have been under boil water notices since last month when water samples found harmful contaminant levels.
In Jackson, Mississippi, school drop-off isn't just for the kids. It's also for the water. The entire city is facing a boil water notice again.
The damage, Trevor, at that water treatment facility, it's leaving this city in such a vulnerable state.
It's leaving this city in such a vulnerable state.
So as you can imagine, shoppers, they're running to grocery stores, to gas stations, to places like this Kroger, trying to get their hands on bottled water. They don't know how long the situation will last.
We're told, don't wash your hair with the water, don't brush your teeth with the water.
Lakeisha Galeelan worries about her 8-year-old.
Is she going to walk over to a water fountain and drink from that water fountain?
To be safe, signs are up at the middle school. They've been there a long time.
After work, I get off late, and you come in the store and it's empty. It's really hard, especially when I work at a food restaurant, and we're closing soon.
You can't remember a time when the kids could use the water fountains in the school?
I can't remember. I honestly can't remember.
There is no timeline for when this plant will be back at 100%. The mayor and the governor declaring state of emergencies over this water issue. 4,500 National Guard members have been activated to help distribute water.
160,000 people tonight without water. And tonight, these images, no water to drink or for showers or the bathroom, and now the lines at water distribution sites. These families right here lining up long before it even opened this morning.
The problem here, like so many other places, is failing infrastructure.
This is a significant escalation here, Kira, and so it's something that Jackson is basically, they're just trying to survive. All these people in the cars and the city itself, too.
They're just trying to survive. I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
So let's take a look at the watch. You can see, as my hand approaches, it dynamically starts to react. note how the responsiveness and precision of radar enables us to create these continuous fluid interactions. Okay, but what if I want to interact with more detail? That's easy. I just move my hand closer to the watch, and now I can use a virtual dial gesture to interact with a complication. So here you can see I'm using a virtual dial gesture to rotate through these various complications. So we've got the messages, the weather, and the calendar. These gestures represent interactions with physical controls, such as using an analog dial. Because I don't have to touch the screen, we can get a lot more information on the display. And of course, just because they're micro gestures doesn't mean I have to them right next to the device. They also work at a distance. So you can see, with just a few solely gestures, we can already start to build these rich interactions, solely embedded fully on a smartwatch.
So here Solely allows to control home devices from the distance without touching them.
So note that the interactions here are much larger than the watch. They're several feet. The sensor actually can sense up to around 15 meters. So we can do some pretty amazing stuff with this. And this is the same thing that's in the watch.
We're hoping that this is a way to reintroduce a new audience to this.
Martin's team also produced a hologram of rock and roll legend Roy Orbison, and they're currently working with the family of Amy Winehouse on an upcoming tour.
Any expectations for that Amy Winehouse show coming up? Anything you could give us for what to expect?
It's going to be authentic. You're going to be, all those people that unfortunately did not get to see Amy, and all those people that did are going to get to see her pretty close to what she was.
How much farther could this technology develop?
I think that you're going to see holograms in your home. I really do. I think it's going to be a while, but I really do. It's going to be, instead of turning on your television, it's going to be whatever that next iteration is, and you're going to have people in your home.
If at first the idea is not absurd, then there's no hope for it. Albert Einstein. People of the world, welcome to The Giant. The visitor attraction for the 21st century. The exhibition space featuring the Giant Experience, a glorious celebration of the great men and women of your country, inventors, artists, scientists, celebrities, and athletes. The viewing tower. See the city from the shoulders of a giant. The roof garden. New dimensions in retail, gastronomy, and special events for diversity of occasions. The world's tallest moving sculpture. Its head moves. Its arms move. It speaks and sings. A place to behold heroes and superheroes. A space to celebrate the great and the good, the game changers, the icons of your city and country. Every hour, the Giant transforms into an extraordinary person, from sports, science, characters, your favorite heroes, and recites poetry and words of wisdom to the crowds below. A space to celebrate the great and the good. The great men and women who have made this world a better place to live in. A digital canvas for artistic creation. A creative canvas like no other. A digital art gallery in the sky that displays masterpieces from today and throughout the ages. The Giant brings artists together from throughout the world. A beacon for brand celebration. A new, eye-catching platform for businesses to reach customers in a novel and memorable way. A giant opportunity. A business model that delivers world-class experiences and world-class profits. An economic stimulator that enhances tourism, job creation, footfall, and commercial activity in the city. Join the Giants movement. The world's largest selfie. An homage to human potential. The world's most awe-inspiring selfie. Visitors are scanned and instantly become a giant. An experience to share and remember for a lifetime. There's nothing like it on the planet. Imagine you can be the giant. The Giant transforms into a stage and a backdrop for festivals, concerts, performances, and special events. Let the party begin! If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. The Giant. Coming to 21 cities in 2021.
And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus."
The Large Hadron Collider is the world's most powerful particle accelerator. Particles moving at nearly the speed of light race around a 17-mile underground track. Researchers smash the particles together to recreate the position present a billionth of a second after the Big Bang. They do this over and over and over again, up to 600 million times a second. Their detectors are so precise that they can take in each collision, which could create, for a fraction of a second, particles we've never seen before, and which could solve some of the biggest mysteries in the cosmos. Things like why objects have mass, and what is dark matter, and supersymmetry, and maybe even find other dimensions in space. These discoveries could lead to technological innovations that can change the world. But ultimately, the most important goal of the Large Hadron Collider is finding out more about how our universe works.
my thoughts and intentions grew him into the person that he is. Who knows what he would have looked like or been like if it wasn't for me. I guess drank each other's blood might mislead people, or like people are imagining us with like goblets and we're like Game of Thrones drinking each other's blood. It's just a few drops, but yes, we do consume each other's blood on occasion for ritual purposes. It is used for a reason, and it is controlled, where it's like, let's shed a few drops of blood and you just drink it. He's much more haphazard and hectic and chaotic, where he's willing to just like cut his chest open with broken glass and be like, take my soul, let me bleed on you. It doesn't not happen, let me tell you. Maybe not exactly like that, but a version of that has happened many times.
Excitement and relief as the Large Hadron Collider subsystems whir back into action, setting a new world record. Colliding its first protons again after 3 years of upgrades, faster than ever before.
Dream team.
Physicists and engineers have been planning this part of the experiment for 15 years. This particle accelerator runs deep below the Swiss Alps, sending high-intensity beams through a 27-kilometer tunnel and smashing them together. It takes thousands of magnets to create a stable beam, squeeze it thinner than a human hair, and guide them round the ring. And these are the results. It's been 10 years since the scientists here discovered the Higgs boson, or God particle, which helped explain why matter takes on mass to form stars and planets. But it only opened up more questions.
The Higgs boson, of course, was kind of a holy grail to find, because we knew it was there, and finally we managed to find it. And now there is a lot of work going on to study it. It's a little bit like you discover a new cave in a mountain, then you take a lot of time in order to explore the cave and to understand how this cave goes, if there are paintings, if there are no paintings.
Physicists hope it will reveal the secrets of dark matter.
And so outside CERN there is a wonderful sculpture of Shiva Nataraja, the shadow of which at night is cast over the entire building, because this is the energy of the particles, the dance of the particles that make matter and life possible.
In Hinduism, all the gods are manifestations of Brahman, who is considered to be the ultimate truth and the ultimate reality of the universe. Lord Brahma the creator, Lord Vishnu the preserver, and Lord Shiva the destroyer.
No character in the history of all religions is as fierce as the Hindu goddess Kali. In India, Kali is known as the Dark Goddess. When the Western scholars encountered Kali, their first reaction was that of shock and surprise. For one thing, they had trouble swallowing the idea that the female could be divine. The closest they had come to such a deity was the kindly and virginal Mother Mary. In the 20th century, with the rise of women's rights, feminists came to view Kali as the embodiment of feminine power. They found her to be liberating. The image of Kali that exists in the West is rather different from the way most Indians see her. Kali, the name which literally means time in Sanskrit, is an intensely frightening and the most powerful manifestation of Shakti. There are many depictions of the different forms of Kali. The most common form often shows Kali as black, naked, with angry red sunken eyes, wearing skulls around her neck as jewelry and limbs around her waist. Her blackness represents that she is Nirguna, meaning beyond all qualities of nature. She has 4 arms, showing aspects of both creation and destruction. With a blood sword in one of her hands, she defeats the enemies and carries the head of a demon on the other hand. She holds the bowl on the third hand, where the blood of the enemy is collected and the last is held out in blessing. She has an open mouth with blood drooling down her tongue while she stands on the body of her husband, Lord Shiva. Although Kali is associated with blood, death and destruction, she is also seen as a mother figure and often referred to as Ma Kali, meaning Mother Kali. Kali is the dramatic expression of a fierce mother's anger and the feminine power that awakens to attack those who threaten her children. The birth or origin of Kali is popularly known through the story of her fight in Markandeya Purana. In Hindu mythology, Raktabij was a demon or asura who had been given a boon by Lord Brahma that every time a drop of his blood fell on the ground, a new version of his own would be created. Having received this boon, he made the life of people and gods miserable, more so with this power to produce more Raktabij every time he sheds a drop of his blood. Hence the gods reached out to goddess Durga or Shakti for help. Armed with all the weapons, the goddess charged at the demon. But as soon as she wounded him with her sword and his blood fell on the earth, the demon multiplied. With more attempts at killing Raktabij, he kept on multiplying. Huge armies of Raktabij were formed by the drops of blood which fell on the earth. Enraged by this, the Devi took the fierce and infuriated form of Kali. She went on to destroy the demon with her sword in her hand. She slayed each demon and collected their bloods in her bowl and drank it immediately. Soon she finished the whole army of Raktabij and only the real Raktabij was left. Then she killed him down and drank his blood until he fell down lifeless. Not realizing that the real Raktabij was dead, the goddess continued her destruction and drinking blood of the innocent. She continued to kill anybody that appeared her way. Seeing this, the gods became extremely worried and approached Lord Shiva for help. Lord Shiva went and laid down amongst the corpses where the goddess was madly dancing for blood. Accidentally, Kali stepped on Shiva and soon she realized her mistake. It was then she stuck out her tongue out of embarrassment and calmed down. She was ashamed that her bloodlust had prevented her from recognizing her husband. Soon she came back to her original form and the destruction was stopped. Shiva lying at the feet also symbolizes the supremacy of nature over man. It clearly shows that without Kali or Shakti, even a powerful force like Lord Shiva is inert. Kali is associated with many different forms and stories. Some of her forms are Mahakali, Bhadrakali, Dakshinakali and Chandika.
The image of Kali has traveled from the east to the west and has made home in the eyes of many. But in truth, Kali does not exist in front of us. She exists in the space behind our eyes.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to One India News and I'm Pooja Sachdeva. This breathtaking picture of Goddess Kali is not anywhere from India, but it's a building of New York. Goddess Kali, the epitome of tremendous power and strength, took over on the Empire State Building in New York last night. This breathtaking artwork was displayed by filmmaker Louis Ahoyes and his team as a part of Projecting Change. It's a project which uses the Empire State Building as a canvas. It was meant to spark awareness of massive wildlife extinction and to draw attention to the alarming rate at which species are dying. It was also to make the point that Mother Nature now more than ever needs a fierce avatar to fight the dangers of pollution and extinction. The show ended with the representation of Kali, the goddess of darkness, imploring people world over to fight the darkness and to take up conservation.
Okay, I'm Celine Dion.
Our children, they are not really our children. We miss the past. They dream of tomorrow. We may thrust them forward into the future, but the course will always be theirs to choose.
She will be heading up a gender-neutral clothing line for children.
The first time I brought them to Disney, they were looking at princesses. But what about Mickey?
Fashion has the power to shape people's minds. We're at Celine trying to shape the future.
We bring a new order as a concept
into the world.
Into the world.